Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Live with Little Data. I'm here with RC from 1-800-D2C. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, I've got rid of the virtual backdrop this time, and we've got a real backdrop, which is quite a nice little resort in the island of Mallorca in Spain. So pleased to be live with you from here today. And we wanted to talk about kind of tech stack, the ideal tech stack, and particularly focusing on what RC spends all his time thinking about, which is sort of brands doing 1 to 5 million GMV, typically on Shopify. What are some of the sort of must-have tech in different categories? So RC, perhaps before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about your business and what you're doing, 1-800-D2C.
Yeah, so we are, the easy way to think of us is as like a directory of all the best direct-to-consumer brands. And we essentially show you their tech stack. So what do they use for reviews, for analytics, for loyalty, all of that. And then we show you why they use them, and then go a bit more in depth of what the tool does, its capabilities, pricing, all of that. With the ultimate goal of helping, essentially solving the issue of like, there's so many apps, so much content about apps, and it's hard for merchants who are just starting or building a new tech stack in their 1 to 5 million Shopify GMV, and it's hard for them to sort through all the content, make good decisions. So we try to surface good, valuable information in a way that's easy to consume and help them make the best decisions to build better brands and better tech stacks.
Excellent. Yeah. So instead of actually just focusing on what you promote, you can say that these are what the top brands are using. Maybe the brands that you aspire to be, this is what they're using in their tech stack.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's as I said, break it up by category. So let's start with analytics. And perhaps before we dive into that, I'll make a clarification, because I think a lot of people assume that Little Data would fit in the sort of analytics category, but we don't really think of ourselves as an analytics app. We're really a data pipeline into other marketing tools. So interested to hear your views, but I see that analytics as the actual, the reports that you'd go and use to find out how your store's doing.
So probably the two most popular apps, especially if you're just starting on Shopify, you can do a pretty good job of leaning on their in-house analytics, mainly for even web now, but sales, marketing, all of that. Shopify does an okay job. But if you want a separate app, usually like a Triple Whale or Lifetimely is where the first few apps you'll consider if you're just starting up. And both can basically do the job of a more advanced financial tool to get you to like a net profit number each day. You can configure that pretty easily in both tools. And then both can get you all of the analytics you need for marketing, customer data, all of that inside those two tools. So I think once you get to like those can get you to a solid 10, 15 million GMV and you don't need much else. But once you go multi-channel, multiple, like if you go wholesale or retail, you might want to look at a different tool at that point. Yeah. But those are the two most popular we see.
They're quite different apps, so maybe they've come more, more the functionalities come more together. But obviously, Lifetimely started more trying to solve this problem of, where you're getting value, customers the highest lifetime value. And Triple Whale was coming more from like, what's bringing my marketing attribution, basically, what's bringing me sales. Do you see them both now as a sort of full suite analytics tools?
We see Lifetimely going that way a bit. Started with the LTV to my best knowledge. Now they're starting to become more of like a business analytics, marketing analytics kind of all-in-one solution. Yeah. From our point of view, Triple Whale is becoming more of like the data platform with their new, I think they called it Moby, like a SQL kind of ChatGPT interface.
Yeah.
And trying to become like the data infrastructure warehouse management tool. Yeah. Going a bit more up market, but for their lightweight products, just like their dashboards and all of that, pretty similar functionality.
I've noticed Triple Whale's really changed their marketing to be less about attribution and more about just reporting generally. So I can see that kind of shift. My honourable mention would be Google Analytics. I think that I get why a lot of recently curve, and it's obviously reasonably hard. So the massive advantage is first free, and secondly, you've got a hell of a lot of flexibility there. So I think so well, but with Triple Whale, it's very opinionated. This the stuff that you want to see as your brand. I would say the advantage of Google Analytics is quite flexible. And the other advantage, obviously, is that the integrations with Google Marketing Cloud, so the ability to export audiences into Google Ads really easily and use that for retargeting. So actually, to be honest, we know a lot of brands in that space that would have both Google Analytics and Triple Whale. But you can argue that if you set it up right, you don't need both.
Google Analytics was my given. It's the one I assume every brand has set up. Yeah. So that's why I didn't make the list.
It's less so. The guest I had a couple of weeks ago said, actually, if you look at the stats, only about 40-50% of brands have actually set up Google Analytics 4. There was a lot of brands, I think, that with the changeover last summer, they were like, hang on, why don't we just try something else? But I actually see them coming back to Google Analytics because it's kind of like a no-brainer to have that as well. Like, why wouldn't you? What's the downside in having like another sort of backup system? Because it means, frankly, if you want to cancel one of the other paid tools, there's less risk. You've got another source of truth you can go to.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's analytics. Let's talk about email and SMS next. I mean, obviously, you've got an audience, you've got a customer base, you want to be able to contact them.
So our opinion in these bigger categories, like the platform, like Shopify, email, SMS, our opinion is just to go with like the market leader. Like the Klaviyo is, it's still the leading tool, best functionality, easy to set up for brands. And we don't know much. We don't see many early stage brands using their SMS tool as much as their email tool. For SMS, we see most going to PostScript. It's at least in our opinion, it's like the natively built Shopify app for SMS, and same with Klaviyo. So those are the two pretty easy choices in the category. And once you get beyond the early stages of your brand, that's when it might make sense to re-platform for whatever reason. But when you're early on, usually just stick with those.
Yeah, I mean, they both offer really flexible pricing for smaller brands. I agree with you. PostScript is actually focused more on that market segment for SMS. I guess the other problem with SMS is it's just more expensive to do. So I guess, you certainly want to do email, and if you do email, you might do SMS through Klaviyo. But I think probably now's the right time, honorable mention of the latest new Klaviyo integration, because we launched this last month, and we're seeing huge results from people who are using that tool to basically boost the audience size they can have for abandoned cart and abandoned browse campaigns. So it's proving very popular to just be able to squeeze more revenue from your existing Klaviyo flows. I mean, I agree with you. I guess I would say honorable mentions, and I mean, obviously, email, SMS. I mean, I think Yotpo is starting to do something quite interesting there. They're aggressively bundling that. Even though they bought an SMS solution and built email solution in with their other products. And I've had a couple of people come on the show say, while it's not quite that up, it's definitely not as up to Klaviyo in terms of complexity. It's kind of getting there for, basic functionality, solid. And then you've got Sanlane, who's trying to do, copy really Klaviyo's functionality like for like. Hasn't quite got the traction. I guess the problem is there's nothing you can do that you can't do on Klaviyo. So there's a bit of a sort of why not just go with the default. I guess the other thing with that, obviously a lot of brands outsource their email marketing to an agency, and then it comes down to like, what is your agency familiar using? And they all use Klaviyo. So I think Klaviyo's got quite a lock in there with the whole agency partner loop.
Totally.
Okay, agreed. And the other thing to mention about Klaviyo is they actually traditionally they've been quite slow to roll out in Europe their SMS coverage. So in Europe, it's actually been a fairly weak option for that. But I know they've actually just launched another 5 countries this week that you can send SMS to. So I think that rolling out that global coverage is a lot harder to do than rolling out email functionality globally. I think that'll bring them more time in Europe.
Good shot. I know that.
Cool. Right. Next category, reviews. What's your thoughts on reviews?
So if there was, in our opinion, if there's one place to invest in your tech stack, it would probably be reviews, because that's, without a doubt, if you're just starting as a brand, reviews are probably the most important thing on your site. So we would say Judge Me is probably like the most installed, most popular amongst these brands, but something like a Yotpo or a Kendo, where kind of like the functionality of like the email capture of the review, the display, all of that is pretty critical, and that's kind of what we would recommend to a brand. Not necessarily revenue wise, but like 0 to 2,000 reviews, like the functionality and display and design of everything, and how you try to capture a review from every customer, and like the emails, all of that is critical. So we would probably recommend going a bit more upmarket.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously Shopify, as in these other, I mean, we didn't mention Shopify email, but again, Shopify reviews is a pretty basic product that they haven't really invested in. So it's one of those categories where you do need an app. Yeah, I mean, Judge Me is interesting. So they really sold on a lot of the kind of mid market with their free offering, and I know the team there based in London seems really solid. But I from what I understand, it's still lacking some of the, as you say, once you get into larger volumes of reviews, some of the management functionality you might have on Yotpo or Kendo.
Yeah, I think Yotpo has the fill it out in your email functionality, which is, when I get those reviews from brands, it's pretty slick.
Yeah,
And it increases the rate at which I submit reviews. So that's always something we're keen on recommending.
and we tried that ourselves with later. It is just so much easier to get feedback if it's kind of in line in the email, because it's just one less click.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, yeah, upsell, cross sell. So there's got it's quite a big cluster of apps that are doing something around on-site optimization, on-site conversion.
There are probably two that stand out for us. For exclusively for post-purchase upsell, probably like an after sell. I guess first off, if you do plan on having post-purchase upsells, you'll need an app for that. Shopify doesn't really offer it natively. So after sell is like the really slick point solution for it. Platform exclusively focused on that. And then something like a rebuy, they also have a basic post-purchase upsell. It's not the core focus of their platform, but it's pretty extensible, and you can get 95% of the way there. And that's where we see a lot of brands going. Rebuy also offers other popular stuff that you'll see across the web, like the smart cart, the merchandising on the product pages with upsells, A/B testing, all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rebuy's got a nice suite of products that you'd otherwise need to find from 4 or 5 other apps. I should also mention that, post-purchase upsells is one of the interesting sort of niche areas that the later supports. So being able to track that, because if you sell something, as the word says, it happens after the purchase. So in most analytics, you wouldn't see that post-purchase upsell, because it's effectively the order's already been processed. So one of the things we do is make sure that that post-purchase upsell is also added onto the revenue track. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and also it's one of those things that you kind of like, some level of sophistication. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it's just another way of boosting. It's not going to, for most of the brands we see doing post-purchase upsells, they're not getting more than a couple of % from it, but that's still, a meaningful difference.
Yeah, if you can boost your AOV 10 to 15% just with a nice on-brand offer when purchase intent super high, there's very, very few reasons why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, subscription. Actually, I just read an article yesterday about subscription. But yeah, interested to hear your views first.
Probably it's similar to email SMS. Recharge is the go-to. It's the easiest platform to set up. You can get super basic with it or super complex. And it's the one where you can start early on, and then you can take it up to as big as you need to get. Market leader, and they've pretty much got every feature, every functionality that you'll need as a early stage brand.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was looking at the post I wrote was basically about the top 5 in that category. Well, so first of all, it's interesting that it hasn't quite. There was a period in 2021, maybe 3 years ago, where everyone was planning on doing subscriptions, and it seemed like every company wanted to do it, except for some very, furniture or something that really doesn't do subscription well. But we saw subscription sunglasses through to subscription gin. It got kind of crazy. So I think people have pulled back from that, and it's interesting that overall it only accounts for about 15% of Shopify Plus stores are using subscription apps in total, and of those, the vast majority is recharge. So you're right, it's and I don't really see. I mean, we partner with all these subscription apps. We support them all, but I have to say, I'm not sure why, as a brand, you would switch from recharge. I'm not sure what it is that you're missing there that you can't get any. You can only get somewhere else. And interesting, if you look at the next four after recharge, it's a mix of what I would call people who are really skimming off the bottom, the really cheap ones that are really trying to be just like Shopify subscription, basically free, but just a little minimal functionality. And then some ones like Skier and Stay AI, who are trying to, really go for the bigger enterprise brands and pick off recharge's core market.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there's some nuances there of like different functionality that they do better than recharge. I just think overall, say it's a kind of like a why. I can understand a bit like the Yotpo versus Trust. Sorry, for the brand. The other reviews are Judge Me. I can see the trade-off there. It's like, okay, free or expensive. But what I currently see is why you would choose like moderately priced and moderately as good. Recharge is fully priced, but it's fully featured.
Yep.
And in fact, I think what will happen in that category is I suspect that Shopify will build on some of the basic functionality. They've continued to do that the last couple of years, and that will basically, push out those cheaper subscription apps. But I don't think it's going to touch Recharge's sort of core area, because there's just so much other stuff there that Recharge does.
Yep.
CX help desk.
We have two. We like Gorgias a lot. They're similar to Recharge, market leader. Most integrated, fully functioned platform, and we also are starting to like Rich Panel. It's essentially Gorgias for a tenth of the price. They have really cool suite of tools. It's very similar platform. Integrations are growing by the week, essentially, and they're also we work closely with the team, and they're also building some really cool AI tools, like a AI social media moderator for comments on your posts and ads, and also like a integrated AI agent essentially inside your help desk, which is cool. Early stages, but they're a new platform, and essentially they're building the AI integrated into the entire Rich Panel platform from the start. I don't think it's going to completely AIify your entire CX operation, but if you can get 40-50% of it integrated with AI, it's a pretty cool option to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those categories where AI is actually transformational, because it really can, right now, do as good a job as your kind of, basic tier one support agent. I agree with you about Gorgias being the leader, and I'm interested to hear about, there's some challenges. I've having used that internally. We use Intercom, and having compared Intercom to Gorgias is a little bit clunky. Like it's. I get that it has a really good integration with Shopify, and I think people love that it's all out of the box in that respect. But it's interesting that I think it's taken the lead in that category, not through being the most brilliant user experience, but just because it was. Well, I guess that is a good user experience. It was well integrated, but I think in terms of the actual functionality of the sort of messaging and chat and ticketing and stuff, I think there are other platforms.
Yeah, and for what the product is, it's you need somewhere for customers to message you, and you need to be able to respond and categorize the messages, and that's kind of like there's no fancy features that you really need for a help desk, and that's probably why you see a bunch more popping up.
Yeah, and again, honorable mention for a little later that we've just launched an integration where you actually want to measure the interactions with your Gorgias help chat widget in the app, and you want to see how that affects things like conversion rate. You can actually track that in Google Analytics. So we ping all those, like whether it's on the started chats, end of the chat, open, close the widget into Google Analytics, which is quite a nice way of trying to judge whether, because that's the big question when we ask ourselves, and I'm sure it's true for lots of brands, is, you know, all this money we're spending on customer support, is it actually adding value in terms of assisting orders and improving lifetime value? Right, last one is landing page builders. What are your views?
We like three options. A, building it natively in Shopify through their customizer and the code editor. B, Replo is a good option. It's like the way we like to think of it or describe it to brands is kind of like a Figma mixed with the Shopify customizer, where you can build all of the sections with no code, port them into Shopify, and you're good to go. And then the classic ones, the unbounced gem pages, all of those are good options. They're a bit more enterprisey, but to build landing pages, probably Replo is our go-to.
What happened to Shogun in that market? Because at one point Shogun was the sort of app for landing pages, and it seems to have just like slightly been caught between two stools.
We might be jaded by our really narrow view on the D2C Shopify brands, but they still pop up a bunch. I think they're out of our entire directory, they're probably top 3 most used or most installed on brand sites. But yeah, for the core D2C brands, Replo is
it's also one of those areas where I think AI has, you know, a lot to do, and I'm interested. I know Shopify made a big fanfare earlier a few months ago about their sort of, you know, AI integrations. I think the ability to basically say, look, I want a page that looks like that, you know, has this component and an image that looks like this. I think there's definitely going to be some products in the next year or two where you can effectively build good landing pages with no code, just a lot of, you know, by describing what you want. That sort of functionality, providing, you know, because Shopify has the product catalog and the other landing page builders can pull it in as well. I'd love to see an app like that where you can, you know, you can really not just no code, but actually no kind of no sort of quasi code where you have to sort of fill in the details.
Yeah, for sure. Just tell it the template you want, like a listicle. Tell it the headlines you're looking for, and then
I like these 3 pages from my competitors. Make something like that.
Yeah.
With my products and brand. You know, AI is good at that sort of thing. AI is great at copying, right? You know, it's great at, you know, give us a format and make it look like that, but for my brand. Cool, awesome. So kind of overall summarize, what's your, I mean, would you say maybe subscriptions aside, but most of the brands of that sort of scale that you're looking at would have an app for most of those categories? Or do you think it's more like, you know, some people have chosen to invest in certain areas and not others?
Yeah, we usually see them go with like the point solution still for each category. If you're sneaky, like you could do a Okendo or Yotpo and roll up reviews, referrals, loyalty, other kind of subsets of categories into those. But for the most part, if you're below your first million or just above GMV, you don't need a crazy amount of apps, and like the market leader in each one will get you pretty much everything you need. And then once you get to that point, then you can either start to roll it up into bigger platforms or just add some of the subset of apps. But for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. And that's an interesting trend, isn't it? That, as you say, some of these larger app businesses, you mentioned Yotpo and Okendo, are trying to create a suite so that it's a bit more integrated. You don't have to buy all the point solutions. There's some obvious natural synergies. You know, so one of the common things you want to do is, hey, I want to email people who reviewed on my thing, or I want to promote reviews to people who are part of my loyalty scheme, et cetera, et cetera. So I can kind of see why that makes sense. In some cases, it's starting to be best of breed. In some cases, it's still the case that they have a leading product and then some kind of also ran products.
Yeah, we're fans of it if the integration of the two products into one platform makes the customer experience better and more cohesive. It makes sense to have both of them in one. If it's just about getting billed in the same platform where it doesn't end up improving things, then it probably is just a ACV booster.
Right. And to be honest, that's the beauty of Shopify apps, is that because you can just add it all to your Shopify bill, it's not actually that much overhead to have different apps doing different things. Yeah, fine, you might have to slightly different user interface to log in or whatever, but basically it's all you get one invoice through Shopify at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. I think we covered all the main categories there, so thanks very much for running us through it. And if anyone you want to learn more, you can go and have a look at the 1-800-DTC website and find out what people in your space are using in terms of tech stack. And if you want to learn more about Little Data, obviously you can always go to our site and see how we integrate with Klaviyo, but also Google Analytics, Facebook ads, TikTok, Pinterest, and Segment. Thanks for coming on, RC.